You watch the karma couple and their practitioner, completely unaware of the celestial judgment unfolding right in front of them. All those years of their secret games and manipulations had finally led to this moment. A reckoning you were destined to deliver, one that would shake them to their core. With every breath and every heartbeat, they drew closer to realizing the true power and identity you carried. The practitioner believed they understood the rules of karma, confident in their ability to weave through the intricate threads of fate. But you were the ultimate judge, the silent collector of cosmic debts, and tonight you would reveal the harsh reality of what it means to stand in the presence of a death angel. Your very existence would serve as the most excruciating lesson they would ever endure. They had played with fire, never truly understanding its heat. What began as hushed whispers and secret rituals done in the shadows had now erupted into a spiritual wildfire for all to see. A force that would spare no one. You saw it all coming, noticing the warning signs early on, faint smoke curling in the distance, only visible to those wise enough to pay attention. But their arrogance blinded them. They mistook your stillness for weakness, your grace for ignorance. And so they kept fuel in the flames, casting poverty spells, sending beauty attacks, and performing rituals laced with death frequencies, all with the hope of breaking your spirit. Yet every attempt crumbled to ash in their hands. Their intentions were always rotten at the core. Jealousy masked as confidence, control disguised as care. These were never just simple hexes. They were bold declarations of obsession. You became their fixation, a mirror they couldn't look away from. Every achievement you earned, every moment of joy you embraced, became a direct threat in their eyes. It was never about wanting your life, it was always about wanting to see it diminished. They craved your light, but the ancestors made it clear, if the divine collective doesn't eat, then nobody eats. Still they persisted, casting spells, moving in the shadows, lying to themselves about who they were truly facing. They misunderstood spiritual rank, thinking flashy rituals and trendy Instagram magic could outweigh lifetimes of divine ordination. But your lineage wasn't built for show. It was forged in fire and tested on battlefields where their soul contracts would never last. When they whispered your name in their rituals, when they drew blood and tried to curse your path, they unknowingly activated a spiritual boomerang set by celestial law. Every spell they cast rebounded, and now their dreams are haunted, their mirrors crack, their finances dry up, and their bodies are left aching. The fire they once imagined is now their constant reality. They took your silence as a weakness, believing it was an open door, not realizing it was a verdict already delivered. You didn't strike back because the divine had already moved on your behalf. Your restraint wasn't fear, it was pure divine confidence. Now the very energy they sent your way is suffocating them. The smoke they summoned has become their own chokehold. They wanted smoke, and the ancestors delivered, teaching them a harsh lesson. When you target the divine with destruction, it isn't destruction that returns, it's the divine itself. You weren't chosen to play nice or to make yourself small for others' comfort. You were sent to break generational curses simply by existing. Every room you entered changed. Every false mask nearby began to slip. You didn't need to reveal their darkness. Your light forced them to confront it themselves. You were never meant to be easy to swallow. You were born to trigger either transformation or destruction. They made their choice and chose destruction. They didn't even recognize the test when it arrived, expecting punishment to look different, not realizing it would come in the form of your presence, a mirror too honest for their illusions to survive. They thought you were someone they could dominate, ready for conflict, manipulation, and spiritual warfare. What they never anticipated was the kind of silence that makes demons scream. You didn't have to fight or curse them. Your very walk unraveled their plans. You were the final exam wrapped in divine grace, and the moment they tried to violate your spirit, they failed. They called you the enemy, when in reality, you were their evaluation. Their curring to filled the problem, their Sumerian problem, never seeing you as the prophecy. Every attempt to remove you only revealed how deeply they were being tested. To them, you were just another person to control. But in truth, your existence was divine permission to break cycles their bloodline had fed for generations. They didn't just start a fight, They invited a reckoning. You weren't an obstacle in their path. You were the exam itself, and they failed spectacularly. They couldn't grasp the true weight of your purpose. All they saw was your smile, never realizing it concealed a sword. They felt the warmth of your love, but had no idea of the generations of warriors standing behind you. In their minds, they thought they were fighting you alone, blind to the reality that every step you took was supported by ancestral armies. While they played games of manipulation, you moved with the certainty of prophecy. While they tried to bury you under illusions, you walked in holy clarity. It wasn't you who broke them. It was your frequency, your presence. When you entered a space, truth entered with you. Lies crumbled. Pretenders trembled. That's what happens when the divine sends someone not to save, but to separate the real from the false. You weren't their karma, you were their crossroads. Every time they chose deceit, envy, and ego over truth, they wrote their own spiritual obituary. They kept expecting revenge from you, but it never came. Instead, they were met with your silence, your elevation, and the unavoidable realization that they were never ready for someone like you. They failed the test, and now they're left living in the aftermath of misreading a divine assignment as a personal enemy. Desperation radiated from them, stronger than incense, and you sensed it the very moment they reached out for help. The karmic couple, after seeing every spell backfire and every lie fall apart, clung to one last hope, a practitioner who promised results, someone who claimed they had the power and the knowledge to handle you. But what none of them understood was that you weren't just protected, you were cloaked in divine law, wrapped in sacred contracts that no mortal could override. By seeking outside help, they unwittingly signed a spiritual death warrant, not for you, but for themselves. This wasn't a petty battle. This was a sacred war zone. Your ancestors stood guard at every gate. Archangels shielded your every step, and divine law encircled you like fire. The practitioner didn't just step into your energy, they stepped onto a battlefield charged with bloodline protection. And God only warns once. The moment they invoked your name, even their own spirits began to withdraw, refusing to interfere with the divine retribution already in motion. That practitioner badly underestimated the price. They thought it would be a simple reversal, maybe a binding or some basic spell work. But your energy rejected it all. In fact, it devoured everything sent your way. Their rituals turned against them, their offerings soured, and their altar spirits went silent. Gradually, they started to unravel, facing financial collapse, declining health, losing clients, and falling into confusion. They weren't drained because you retaliated, but because the divine does not play when the chosen are attacked. Now they find themselves spiritually bankrupt, trapped in the very cycles they tried to cast on you. They never noticed the sword behind your smile. They saw your light and assumed it meant you were an easy target, not realizing that your light was forged in realms they could never survive. Now, when they try to sleep, they see eyes in the darkness, hear names whispered that aren't theirs, and constantly feel watched, because they are. The divine does not forget. While they tried to erase you, God marked them instead. The karmic couple thought they were clever by outsourcing their darkness so their own hands would stay clean. But all they managed to do was drag another soul into their downfall. That practitioner didn't just lose a battle, they lost their spiritual name. The ancestors stripped them of their rank, and the gifts they once wielded with confidence are now dull and empty. They opened a door, thinking it would only let in your energy, but what came through was divine reckoning. Now just speaking your name makes their voice tremble, not from power, but from fear. You never had to retaliate, light a candle, or cast a single spell, and yet they still lost everything. That's the price of meddling with the sacred when you were never meant to intervene. Quick pause, family. If this message is resonating with your soul and you want to support this sacred work, you can buy me a coffee. It helps keep this space alive with truth, light, and divine clarity. The link is in the description. And if you're feeling it, drop number 88 in the comments. Let's keep going. Now, extraordinary souls are waiting for you to step forward. The real question isn't whether you belong among them, it's how much longer you'll wait to claim your place. These two didn't start out as a threat. They became one, two souls bound not by love, but by shared delusion, feeding each other's shadows until obsession was all that was left. One carried envy like a perfume, subtle at first, then overwhelming. The other executed every scheme with the confidence of someone who believed God wasn't watching. Together, they thought they were unstoppable, building their empire of illusion on lies and manipulation, convinced that power came from control. But they never planned for your presence, and never dreamed that your silence would be the very thing to break them. They were so focused on you that they forgot God was watching them. While they plotted, your ancestors were documenting every hex, every attempt to isolate you, every slanderous word, receipts stacking up in the unseen, stamped and sealed by divine scribes. They didn't just underestimate you, they underestimated the intelligence of the divine itself. They thought they were outsmarting everyone, but when it was time to collect, there was nowhere left to hide. Now the bond they used as a weapon has become a cage. They can't stand each other, but they can't break free. The blame and accusations fly, and their empire of control is collapsing from within. Now they sleep in uneasy silence, stalking each other's fears like mirrors threatening to shatter under pressure. God didn't just tear down their outer world, He forced them inward, making them confront the truth of who they really are. What they discovered is brokenness, emotionally fractured, spiritually hunted. The shadows they once aimed at you now haunt their own homes. One of them is falling apart quickly, plagued by physical illness, spiritual emptiness, and emotional instability that have become part of daily life. The other is trapped in endless obsession, unable to stop watching you, checking your every move, still triggered by your presence. But now what once was rage has transformed into deep regret. They believed that removing you would bring back their sense of normalcy, never realizing you were the final light holding their reality together. When they chose darkness over clarity, everything around them began to decay. Sleep won't come easily. Dreams have turned into nightmares, and waking life feels like punishment. Every attempt to reverse their fate is blocked. Every road they take leads them straight back to the moment they tried to play God with your life. You didn't have to do anything but exist. Your light exposed their emptiness. Your peace highlighted their chaos. And your growth proved that what they tried to destroy only became stronger. This is the consequence of unchecked obsession. It devours those who nurture it. They made you the center of their rituals, their lies, their hatred, and now God has made you the center of their judgment. The karmic couple believed they were building a legacy of domination, but all they really created was a monument to their own collapse. Let's be clear, you're not here for theatrics or dramatic displays. You are divine judgment in human form, the living proof of what happens when the universe decides it will no longer be ignored. You don't seek revenge. You are the conclusion, the final line in a story their ancestors begged them not to write. Now your energy doesn't pursue, it brings endings. Your silence doesn't comfort, it shatters. Wherever you go, karma follows like a storm just waiting to break loose. People often mistake your peace for permission, but in truth, your peace is the last warning. You gave them chances. God counted everyone. You offered grace. God recorded every time it was rejected. Then you stopped explaining and simply walked away. The very moment you left, the skies shifted. The ancestors moved. Your protection grew stronger, and the judgment surrounding you intensified. You don't need to curse anyone. Your very presence delivers the verdict. You became the boundary that ended toxic cycles, not just for yourself, but for generations to come. You weren't sent here to coexist with toxicity. You were sent to end it. You were never meant to be loved by those still loyal to their lower selves. Your purpose was to expose the rot for all to see. They thought they could bury the truth, silence your power, and erase your impact. But when you finally stepped back, they didn't just lose access to your energy. They lost the divine protection that had quietly shielded them from the full consequences of their actions. There's a silence that resonates louder than any spell or incantation. A silence that isn't empty, but full of warning. When you stopped sending out final cautions, the ancestors started speaking in storms. Everything around them began to unravel in ways they never expected. Jobs suddenly lost without explanation, cars breaking down at the worst moments, public humiliation striking when they least imagined, health taking mysterious downward turns, legal problems coming out of nowhere, and dreams haunted by the shadow of death. None of these events were random. Each was a ripple in the spiritual realm, a signal that the death angel had walked away, taking with it the last of their spiritual shelter. You never needed to raise your voice, cast a spell, or seek revenge. You simply left. And as you left, their world collapsed, piece by piece. Because you don't walk in death, you walk in transformation. Your presence is the crossroads where people must decide to rise up or fall away, to evolve or be consumed by their own darkness. Those who chose war with you didn't realize the truth. They weren't fighting a mere mortal. They were going head-to-head with a cosmic shift, a force of spiritual evolution that cannot be defeated or resisted. No one wins against the universe's design. And you were sent not for praise or applause, but to bring about closure and an ending to destructive cycles. Now, every time your name crosses their lips or enters their mind, they are hit with a powerful wave of remembrance. Divine judgment made real, with a heartbeat and a face. It's not you that scares them, it's the truth you never had to say aloud. They finally understand you were never afraid of them. You saw their true nature from the very start, saw through all the illusions, performances, and masks, straight into the darkness they fought so hard to keep hidden from the world and themselves. Even when you knew everything, you didn't retaliate. You just remained still, sovereign, watching as the universe delivered the karma they had summoned for themselves. Now, they aren't just haunted by the tangible consequences of their actions, by the loss, the sickness, the setbacks, and public exposure. They are haunted by the silence itself. It wasn't just your mouth that closed, it was God closing the door, revoking permission for them to ever test you again. Every time you chose to remain quiet instead of lashing out, they felt their world contract. The air grow heavier, the pressure mount. Every peaceful step you took was actually the deepening of divine judgment around them. What they mistook for safety in your silence was in reality the last warning before the storm broke. It was the ominous calm before the universe struck with full force. Now, their nights are restless and tortured. Sleep no longer brings peace. Instead, their dreams have become endless chains of messages, cryptic numbers, strange symbols, and visitations that they can't explain or shake off. Shadows loom over their beds, whispering truths in a language only their soul comprehends. Their dreams are plagued with coffins, clocks whose hands never move, familiar faces morphing into monsters. Night after night, visions that are less like nightmares and more like prophecies fulfilling themselves. What once felt like paranoia is now understood as a spiritual prophecy playing out in real time. The energy they once sent toward you, energy meant to harm and diminish, now stalks them daily. Everything they tried to bury is rising. Every spirit they summoned now claims them as its own. And the most painful truth? They are fully aware that all of this is a result of their own actions. Legal problems are piling up. Secrets they thought were long hidden are now coming to light in the most unexpected and humiliating ways. Their bodies are breaking down, weighed by the stress and spiritual backlash. Through it all, a single question torments their mind with relentless intensity. Who are you? How did nothing they tried, no curse, no lie, no sabotage, ever stick? Each time they thought they had you cornered, you rose higher, became brighter, stronger, and even more untouchable. It terrifies them because you didn't just survive, you ascended. You didn't just recover, you transformed. Really realize now that what they tried to destroy was never just a person. It was a living prophecy, a powerful frequency, a manifestation of divine reckoning walking around in human skin. You never had to declare it. God is declaring it for you. I am the death angel. I was sent for the end, not for applause. I am not here to entertain. I am here to close this chapter and complete a sacred cycle. Now that cycle is closing in on them, tightening like a noose, leaving them nowhere to run or hide. Every attempt they make to fix or reverse their fate leads them right back to their own moment of choice, the instant they decided to play God with your life. And now, with every breath, they come face to face with the cost of crossing someone who was never here for entertainment or approval, but for transformation and for endings, ordained by forces far greater than anything they could ever conjure. They tangled themselves so deeply in their rituals, obsessions, and malice that everything in their lives led right here to this moment of consequence they never imagined could feel so suffocating, so inescapable. Every single morning as they wake and realize they're still breathing, it's not a blessing, but a grim reminder that they're living inside the aftermath of what they summoned. Their own choices have become the prison they can't escape. That's the real punishment. Not the loss, not the setbacks, but the relentless knowing, the clarity that can never be unlearned. Because once truth is awake, it never goes back to sleep. Once you've crossed paths with the death angel, reality itself shifts, and nothing ever looks or feels the same again. It began quietly, a kind of exhaustion that sleep couldn't heal, a bone-deep fatigue that clung to their spirit and dragged their soul down. At first, they thought it was stress or coincidence, never suspecting that karma itself had entered their bloodstream, making itself at home, rewriting the code of their body and soul. God was no longer whispering in the background. The divine had taken up residence in their very cells. Their bodies started to betray them, systems shutting down, mysterious, chronic illnesses that doctors couldn't diagnose, persistent pains and ailments that perfectly mirrored the very curses they tried to send your way. For some, food lost its comfort. For others, standing or moving became a battle. They watched themselves slowly decay in real time, as if cancer energy had swept in, cellular judgment for energetic crimes that went ignored for too long. When God decides that enough is enough, even the body itself becomes a battleground, and there's nowhere left to hide. But the collapse didn't stop at the body. Legal consequences followed close behind, as if the universe was meticulously checking off every offense, every message they thought was deleted, every secret act of spiritual sabotage, every stalker move or petty outburst of envy. It's all coming to light now. The digital trails they left, thinking they were too clever to be caught, are resurfacing with perfect timing. God has a way of waiting until pride peaks, until they think they've gotten away with it, and then flipping the entire script. Surveillance footage appears out of nowhere. Digital receipts resurface. Unexpected witnesses step forward. An investigation seemed to spring up overnight, suddenly charges stick where once they might have slipped away. The web of lies they spun to catch others is tightening around them like a noose, pulling tighter each day until the only thing left is their own suffocation. This is a kind of collapse that no amount of ritual or apology can undo. They tried to steal your energy, to break your spirit, to bend the very will of the divine for their own gain. And now, the universe is returning every bit of it, multiplied. The very spells they cast now cling to the walls of their home like residue, whispering reminders of what they set in motion. They hear voices, see shifting shadows, and feel a cold emptiness where there was once warmth. False security. Their spiritual protection has been stripped away. Ancestors who once ignored them now actively dismantle their peace. What they mocked about you now marks them, and humiliation has become public. The carefully curated image, the illusion of power and influence, they're all crumbling before an audience that sees right through it. Relationships fracture as the truth rises to the surface. Jobs disappear, money dries up, and the social masks they wore so easily are slipping faster than they can adjust. They walk into rooms now and feel the heavy stares of people who know the truth, who see beyond the lies. The illusion has no buyers left. Everything they once wished upon you, poverty, isolation, public exposure, has now become their new daily reality. But this isn't just karma. This is divine orchestration. Justice on a level only the Creator can execute. God ensured they would feel every layer of collapse, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, restoring balance where they tried to tip the scales. Because what they did was never minor. It wasn't just petty jealousy or momentary envy. It was a calculated attempt to rewrite destiny, to curse the anointed, to bury a divine soul and call it spiritual work. Now the soil they dug in hopes of hiding you has become their own resting place, sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally. They tried to break your confidence, silence your voice, erase your path, but every attack only sharpened you. What was meant to shatter you became the force that crowned you. Every betrayal, every act of malice clarified your vision, and strengthened your spirit. Your glow didn't just return, it multiplied. They never realized your story was about more than survival. It was always about ascension. They thought they were ending your journey, but in truth, every trial only activated your next level. While they spiraled in curses and bitterness, your love life began to heal, your spiritual gifts grew stronger, and God restored everything they tried to steal, then multiplied it threefold. You became living prophecy in motion. They thought they could block your movement, but you transformed into a movement itself, unstoppable and divinely orchestrated. You are living proof that no one can curse what the divine has already claimed. They underestimated how the divine works. Silencing you didn't save them, it only exposed them further. Trying to kill what God sent is always a suicide mission, and now every vibration of that truth reverberates through their lives. Every pain, every loss, every moment of fear is a direct result of the energy they sent out. And you walk through their fire untouched, not only surviving but ascending to a realm they can no longer reach. What they thought would be your ending was actually your crowning. Now every breath they take is a reminder of the living consequence they summoned and the new reality they created with their own hands. That's all for today, dear Father. I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you, even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts for me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provision. I am grateful for your presence in my life and the abundance you bring. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with those who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your journey and how you are preparing for your own triumphant return. If you'd like to support our work, please consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. This helps us continually improve our content to offer you the best. The link to Buy Me a Coffee is in the description. No gift is too small, whether it's a penny, a prayer, or a share. Your generosity helps spread God's word and brings hope to others. Don't stop here. Watch our next video for powerful revelations about the signs that reveal you are the chosen one. We've enjoyed following this spiritual journey with you. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Keep shining brightly and embrace your destiny with courage. See you next time. Blessings to all the beautiful souls from the